Hi students, we're going to start with our second lecture about Animal Farm. We know that the theme of power controls and explores throughout the novel and is highlighted by the characters' relationships on the farm. Orwell tries to use those themes as political and explore what happened within the Russian society in 1917 onwards. Orwell intended originally to call the novel a fairy story, and he tried to suggest that it intended to be a fable. Of course, a fable is a story, a tale, but later he changed his mind. We know that the main characters in the farm are animals and represent the various leaders of the revolutions around the world, of course, and the Russian Revolution in particular. Through this, Orwell wanted to show us that leaders can change with power. And he wanted to give us the story. He used animals to make the story more clearer to us. Because he used to see people who had money and power as pigs. We're going to see this in the novel. The story is a classic example of how power destroys both society and the government, of course. He focuses on how too much power corrupts an individual, which leads to his downfall and destroys society altogether. After Orwell became a socialist in the 1930s, after he was in contact with unemployment, poor coal miners, George Orwell later became disappointed with it all, of course. Moreover, he was greatly disturbed by the spread of harsh dictatorships. Of course, dictatorship was all over the world at the time. Britain is not a dictatorship, but he didn't like the ruling class. He didn't like the monarchy. Monarchy, let's say, العائلة المالكة. He didn't like the one in Britain. He wrote his elegy, let's say, symbol, رمز للقصة. I'm going to say it in Arabic. Animal Farm, as a reaction to his great disappointment in fascism. Fascism, fasciyة, Marxist socialism, and communism, شيوعية. Using animals to represent certain historical figures and portray events in Russian history from 1817 to 1943. Okay, we'll talk about Napoleon. Napoleon, the pig that emerges as the leader of Animal Farm after the rebellion. It's based on Joseph Stalin. Napoleon uses military force, his 9 loyal attack dogs, to intimidate the other animals and consolidate his power in his supreme cunning ways. Cunning maker. Napoleon proves more treacherous than his counterpart Snowball. Treacherous, let's say, يعني شرير, يغدر. Like Stalin, Napoleon eliminates his competition, running off Snowball. He is a brutal dictator. Of course, we have to know what Joseph Stalin did at the time. Napoleon represents Joseph Stalin. Stalin was a powerful man in his time. He outmaneuvered several Soviet dictators such as Leon Trotsky and inherited the Soviet Union. Outmaneuvered يعني سيطر عليهم, طلعهم من الحكم. After the powerful Vladimir Lenin, Stalin's goal, now being in control, was to strengthen the Union leader under communist ideals. He turned the idea of communism to his theory of Stalinism. Joseph Stalin died on the 5th of March 1953. خلينا نقول هو غير الشيوعية. ليش أورويل كان يضوج من عنده ما يحبه؟ لأن هي الثورة السوفيتية صارت على المبادئ الشيوعية، لكن ستالين غيرها، سواله هو أفكار خاصة من عنده دمجها بالشيوعية. And that's why he never liked him. Okay, let's talk about Snowball. The character Snowball, he's a pig who challenges Napoleon for control of Animal Farm after the rebellion. Based on Leon Trotsky, Snowball is intelligent, passionate, eloquent يعني فصيح, and less supple and devious than his counterpart. يعني هو ما كان بحجم الشر اللي كان عند نابليون. Less supple and devious than his counterpart. His counterpart Napoleon, of course. Snowball seems to win the loyalty of the other animals and cement his power. Cement his power, يثبت القوة مالته. Cement his power. Snowball is based on Leon Trotsky. Leon Trotsky, like at the beginning of the revolution, Russian Revolution, he was with the Bolsheviks after having been an opposing faction, believed himself the heir, هاي الكلمة H-E-R, heir of Lenin, يعني وريث Lenin. But after Lenin died, Stalin outsmarted him أكثر ذكاء من عنده, having him thrown out of the party and exiled. Of course, Leon Trotsky, he was the commissioner of war in the new Soviet Union government. He was exiled several times to Siberia, but he still tried to take control of the Union. Of course, Stalin, in his time, he was very clever, he was very smart, and he managed to throw Trotsky out of power, which later Trotsky was later assassinated on the 20th of August 1940 under Stalin's power. Of course, he wasn't in Russia at the time, but he sent people who assassinated him. Okay, let's talk about Boxer. Boxer is the cart horse whose incredible strength, dedication, and loyalty play a key role in the early prosperity of Animal Farm and the later completion of the windmill, of course. Quick to help, but rather slow-witted, Boxer shows much devotion to Animal Farm's ideals, but little ability to think about them independently. He naively trusts pigs to make all his decisions for him. Boxer is a horse, of course. He believed everything. He believed what the government told him. And he's to trust them naively, بسذاجة. يثق بالخنازر. الخنازر اللي هي السلطة بوقتها الحاكمة. To make all decisions for him. كل القرارات إله. His two mottos, of course, concentrate on this. ركزوا على هاي. His two mottos. I will work harder. Napoleon is always right. Which is, of course, you shouldn't do this. He can't do this. You can't say that person is always right. Nobody's always right, of course. Squeaker, the pig that spreads Napoleon's propaganda among the other animals. Squeaker justifies the pig's monopolization of resources and spreads false statistics pointing to the farm's success. Statistics, الإحصائيات. Orwell uses Squeaker to explore the ways in which those in power often use rhetoric and language to twist the truth and gain and maintain social and political control. He is the communist speaker who informs the public. He reinterprets what has happened. خركز على he is the communist speaker. هو المتحدث الشيوعي اللي يعيد الحقائق مثل ما هم يردون. يعيد ترجمة الأشياء اللي صارت. He reinterprets what has happened. Like, let's say, he's a propagandist. He tells what the government wants him to say. Okay, Old Major, the prize-winning Boer, whose vision of socialist utopia serves as the inspiration for the rebellion and revolution. 3 days after describing the vision and teaching the animals the songs, Beasts of England, Major dies, leaving Snowball and Napoleon to struggle for control of his legacy. Orwell based Major on both the German political economist Karl Marx and the Russian revolutionary leader Vladimir Lenin. Of course, we know Vladimir Lenin هو اللي قام بالثورة الشيوعية. Karl Marx هو رجل اقتصادي، هو اللي أسس الأفكار مع الشيوعية، أسسها الماركسية. This theory then became developed into several other theories such as Leninism and communism, اللينية والشيوعية. His theory later led hundreds of people dead under the power of the Soviet Union. Karl Marx died on the 14th of March 1883. Clover, a good-hearted female cart horse and Boxer's close friend. Clover often suspects the pigs of violating one or another of the 7 commandments. 7 commandments هي الوصايا السبعة اللي طرحها بالبداية نابليون، اللي طرحوها هم الخنازير. But she repeatedly blames herself for misunderstanding or misremembering the commandments. هي دائما تنسى هاي commandments، هاي الوصايا، لكن دائما تلوم نفسها. blames herself. هاي رمز من أورويل، إنه يقول يعني هي كانت تشك بروحها. هي صح فعلا هم يغيرون الكوماندمنتس، بس هي دائما تشك بروحها، اللي هي رمز شلون يقول أورويل، يعني للجهل. أوكي. Moses the tame raven غراب يعني, who spreads stories of sugar candy mountain, the paradise to which animals supposedly go when they die. Moses plays only a small role in Animal Farm, but Orwell uses him to explore how communism exploits religion as something with which to specify the oppressed. Because, he's saying that some governments use religious leaders. They tell people things, they give them promises, so that the people would just, wait. They'll wait for something to happen. Molly, the vain, flighty mare that pulls Mr. Jones's carriage. Molly craves the attention of human beings and loves being groomed and pampered. She has a difficult time with her new life on Animal Farm, as she misses wearing ribbons in her mane and eating sugar cubes. She represents the petite bourgeoise, الطبقة الراقية الحاكمة, that fled from Russia a few years after the Russian Revolution. هي رمز للطبقة اللي كانت ويا حكم القيصر زار. Okay, Benjamin, the long-lived donkey who refuses to feel inspired by the rebellion. Benjamin firmly believes that life will remain unpleasant no matter who is in charge. Of all the animals on the farm, he alone comprehends the changes that take place, but he seems either unwilling or unable to oppose the pigs. Muriel, the white goat who reads the 7 commandments to Clover whenever Clover suspects the pigs of violating their prohibitions. Okay, Mr. Jones. Of course, Mr. Jones is the human owner of the farm. He's often drunk, who runs the manor farm before the animals stage their rebellion and establish Animal Farm. Mr. Jones is an unkind master who indulges himself while his animals lack food. He thus represents Tsar Nicholas II. شوفوا Tsar TSAR التيمات اللفظ Tsar Nicholas II, whom the Russian Revolution ousted يعني أخرجوه من السلطة. Tsar Nicholas, خلينا نتكلم عن Tsar II. Tsar Nicholas was the final emperor of Russia. Tsar had almost no experience with the government and mistreated his ministers. Eventually, he was thrown by Russia, where they rebelled against the government. Of course, he was killed during the revolution, he and his family. It's a famous story. Okay, other human farmers who represented Germany and the allies with whom Stalin entered into various deals and alliances. هنا خلينا نركز على هاي. أورويل استعمل هاي يعني الأشخاص كرمز للسلطات اللي كانت تحكم بأوروبا at the time. Other human farmers, okay. Germany and the allies, الحلفاء اللي كانوا خلينا نقول بالحرب العالمية الثانية. Mr. Frederick, the tough, shrewd operator of Pinchfield, a neighboring farm based on Adolf Hitler. Mr. Frederick, based on Adolf Hitler, the ruler of Nazi Germany in the 1930s and the 1940s. Mr. Frederick proves an untrustworthy neighbor. يعني غير موثوق به. جار غير موثوق به. Mr. Pinkleton, the easygoing gentleman farmer who runs Foxwood, a neighboring farm, Mr. Frederick's bitter enemy. Mr. Pinkleton represents the capitalist governments of England and the United States. Pinkleton يمثل الحكومة الرأسمالية اللي هي بإنجلترا والولايات المتحدة اللي هم أعداء النازية أدولف هتلر. Mr. Wimper, the human solicitor. solicitor اللي هو المحامي بس بريطانيا باللغة الإنجليزية يستعملون solicitor. أكثر شيء مستخدم of course. Whom Napoleon hires to represent Animal Farm in human society. Mr. Wimper's entry into the Animal Farm community initiates contact between Animal Farm and human society, alarming the common animals. الحمات ليش خافت من شافت مستر ويمبر؟ راح تقرونها بعدين بالرواية، لأن هم الحمات قالت بعد ما نتعامل البشر. فأنيمالز من شافوا مستر ويمبر أدركوا أنه لا، بدت هاي الحكومة اللي هو نابليون يتعاملون ويا الهيومنز ويا البشر المصالحهم الخاصة. human society alarming يعني خوفتهم، أثارت يعني حفيظتهم خلينا نقول. Okay, Jessie and Bluebell, two dogs, each of whom gives birth early in the novel. Napoleon takes the puppies in order to educate them. We're going to see them in the novel. The puppies, Napoleon's going to train them and make them his own attack dogs, let's say. The dogs that do Napoleon's dirty work. You know, like he's going to make them a small military force. And they're going to divide themselves and attack other people, anyone who was against Napoleon. Of course, Jessie and Bluebell, the dogs, the 9 attack dogs, represent the KGB. It's not in those slides, but that's what he means. They represent the KGB, represent them. The KGB was the Soviet Union organized a police force that controlled the people to stay dedicated and loyal to the Union. They would use force to have them at their feet. This made the Union a very secure place, so there won't be any rebellion. Minimus, the poet, pig who writes verses about Napoleon and pens the patriotic song Animal Farm, Animal Farm, to replace the earlier idealistic hymn, Nasheed, hymn, HYMN, Beasts of England, which Old Major passes on to the others. شو يقول أورويل؟ يعني هذا الشاعر مينيمس يكتب الكلام والقصائد حسب إرضاء نابليون. هو اللي غير النشيد الأول Beasts of England وغيره سواء Animal Farm راح نوصل له.